without further ado, Dane County Executive Candidate Eileen Bruskewitz.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Well, thank you for inviting me to your group to speak about my candidacy for county executive. And I think I'll just start with just a little bit of background about myself. I am a registered nurse. I worked at the University of Wisconsin Hospital and Clinics, and before that I worked at UCLA. I moved here from Los Angeles 31 years ago, and I am now completely adjusted to Wisconsin winters. I can even drive on ice, no problem. I've been on the county board for the last 11 years, and had a chance to really find out how county government works, and that's why I decided to run for county executive, because I know we can do a lot better job than what we're doing right now. I come to the job with experience as a businesswoman too. When I moved here from Los Angeles, I bought apartment buildings with a partner and a partnership, and I have owned and still own those apartment buildings. I managed them myself for many, many years. I have a terrific management team put together, and I realized through that whole business experience, which continues to this day, that having a business in Madison and Dane County is not all that easy. There are very heavy regulations in the apartment industry, and I found that the people that were creating these regulations really didn't understand the business very well. So for years, I would work with some of the advocates for new ordinances and make recommendations for how you could create ordinances that were not only better for tenants, but they should also be better for landlords too. I mean, we don't have to have winners and losers. You can create situations where everyone wins or gets what they need. Some regulations we were able to kill because they didn't make sense. Some should have been killed and we couldn't get them to back off. So we're stuck with these regulations in that industry. It happens in many industries. I just am most familiar with the residential rental part of it. When I talk to my friends that work in the commercial area, commercial development, other entrepreneurs, they may find that they can have a great idea and want to get started, but as soon as they bump up against zoning ordinances or other regulations, it becomes very difficult to proceed. My experience throughout the 11 years that I've been on the board, I was at first assigned to the Transportation Committee. I'm the chief proponent, sponsor of the North Mendota Parkway. I've spent many, many hours in those meetings, and I'm happy to say that the first North Mendota Parkway Study Committee, that report was passed 36-1 at the county board, because what we did was we found out what everyone needed to see out of a North Mendota Parkway. Transportation needs, the farmers, we have many generational farmers out in this area. They wanted to preserve their farms. There were certain parts of Westport and Waunakee that wanted to see more development and ease traffic congestion. So we put together a plan that worked. And my experience has been, if you are looking to find common ground, if you're looking to find solutions, you will. But you have to talk to each other, and you have to, be motivated by the right things. And I think we've seen that with the North Mendota Parkway. We also saw it with shoreland zoning, another very important issue. There are 57,000 homes that are located in the shoreland zone, which is 1,000 feet from a lake or 300 feet from a river or stream. all of those homes were going to be affected by a zoning ordinance that would have taken away some significant rights of those property owners. And being in the minority in the county board, the only actions you can take are to introduce substitute resolutions or bring things to the county board floor so that they can be argued in the public or debated in the public. So that's what we did with shoreland zoning. It was a very long process, but we were able to stem the tide of that kind of zoning. We're not out of the woods on that yet, because because there are those in Dane County that want to have more stringent requirements than the new state law in terms of shoreland zoning. I've been on the Health and Human Needs Committee now for the last, for 6 years. And as a nurse and working in cardiac nursing, I had a chance to work with lots of people that are frail, elderly, people that are that are stressed by a disease and their families are, which is, it's common. You have a young child with a developmental disability. These are difficult situations, and for many people they require help from the county. My experience through those 6 years on health and human needs really demonstrated to me that, one, we have people that we all want to help. I have no doubt that people want to help those who truly need our help. But I also learned that there's a very inefficient system for delivering that help. We spend, it's about 60% of the county budget goes to health and human needs. And yet we haven't evaluated the programs, and there are hundreds of programs. We haven't done any significant evaluation for the last 5 years. That, to me, says that we don't know if we are funding success or failure. There's no evaluation, no feedback. So as the county executive, that is an area that I would want to take on as a priority, just to make sure that we're getting the best bang for our buck, not only for the taxpayers, but the people that are receiving services. The most recent thing I've been working on, and many of you have participated in the No Tax for Tracks initiative. And that was, I think, wonderfully successful because it gave people a voice to say what they thought about a new tax for commuter rail. And there was a resounding, over 70% of the 44 of the 45 communities that had the referendum question on their ballot said no, we don't want to go down that path. So that was a very encouraging vote to me. It really told me that, at least in those municipalities, people do want to pay attention to how the county spends money and how we budget, and I think that's what the next county executive, and I would like it to be me, and I'm asking for your vote. Those are some of the things that I've been working on. I would like to continue to work on as the county executive. The county executive writes the budget. There's a great deal of power in writing the budget because that budget is presented to the county board. They can make amendments to it. They can't increase the budget. They can take things out. They can find swaps so that it doesn't increase. But it's the county executive that can say, we're not going to raise taxes. We're going to use the money more efficiently. We're going to direct funds this way or that way where it makes the most sense, where we're going to be using the money most efficiently. One of the greatest concerns I have is the fact that Wisconsin, as I'm sure you know, we're way down at the bottom in terms of the amount of debt per capita. We're down there with California and Illinois. There's a tremendous debt burden that we're all bearing. And you know, comes home to roost. At some point in time, you have to pay that debt off. And there have been lots of tricks used at the state level to kind of, you know, obscure what's really going on. It's not very different at the county level. So if you add the state debt to our current county debt, which is about $252 million, and it's increased, it's tripled in the last 10 years. And then you add that to potentially the Regional Transit Authority, the debt load that they can incur if they decide to raise a half-cent sales tax. That's another $400 million. Dane County is just going to be, I mean, we're going to be buried in debt. And that's of great concern to me, because that means all the funds that come in, if it goes towards servicing this debt, it squeezes out, it starves out the kinds of programs that I think most people want to see, which include the human services and you know, protection of our natural resources like lake quality. We may, with all of this snow, we may have a problem with flooding that comes in the spring. We're going to have to look out for. But you know, I've been motivated by these last 11 years, and I think I bring a certain perspective to this position. And again, I ask for your vote on February 15th for the primary election, and again on April 5th in the general election.
Thank you very much. Who has questions for Eileen?
Is the RTA still planning on raising that tax, or has it been stemmed a bit, or?
Well, I think they got the message with our No Tax for Tracks initiative that people don't want to have at least pay a half-cent sales tax for commuter rail, which was the specific question we had posed. The RTA, the last thing I've read is that they are indeed going to move forward with a tax referendum, but it's going to be for 1/4% for a bus system. I don't think it's necessary at all. I mean, we don't need an RTA that is basically a revenue generating machine for tax dollars. Little known fact, but it was Dick Wagner who introduced, when he was on the county board, the half-cent sales tax to build the jail and for property tax relief. And here we are, Dane County has paid over $500 million, $500 million in sales tax for a jail that cost $23 million, and we're still paying for it. And I haven't seen any kind of property tax relief from this at all. So I think this is just a way of operating. It's raising funds. People don't seem to mind. They don't seem to mind if it's a sales tax over a property tax. I can tell you property taxes are not going to go down. Maybe a little bit in Madison if they can shove the bus system onto the outlying county taxpayers. But we have plenty of examples in Dane County where we can provide public transit at a fraction of the cost of what it will cost the RTA. And the RTA tax is in perpetuity. I've never seen a government stop a tax that once it's started, it's there with us forever. So I also have a resolution before the county board to repeal the RTA and to change the statute so that the RTA is repealed. And of course it kind of gets buried in committee, but I hear that we may be hearing from the legislature that very soon that they are considering repeal of the RTA. Its construction was done, you know, in the dead of night. It wasn't good government, that's for sure. And if we're going to have to live with any kinds of tax increases, and I hope we are not going to have any, I mean, we should have that. It should be open. The sun should be shining on all of these discussions, and so I'm hopeful that we will not have an RTA within the next month or two, if that statute is repealed.
I have a question, Eileen. We're presented with a 0.5% increase, and really that amounts to a 9% increase in the amount we will be paying if that 0.5% goes through.
Tell me how you're
9% is the increase that we'll be paying.
Right. Well, and we would be the most high, if that 0.5 cent goes through, then our sales tax would be 6%. We'd be the highest taxed
Right.
sales tax county in the state, and you know, that's not good for business. So you know, if Dane County wants to be the hole in the economic donut, we're heading that way unless we stop these things and repeal them. So, you know, our taxes are high enough. That's what I hear from people all the time. People that are on fixed incomes, and people that have lost jobs, and people that are underemployed. I mean, we can't be asking them. And sales taxes are particularly bad because they have a disproportionate effect on lower income people. So I'd like to see our taxes, you know, if we can level them off, I'd be happy. If we could reduce them, that would be all the better. But at this point in time, just stopping this upward trend is, I think, very important. And as county executive, you have the tools to do that.
Oh, go ahead.
There has been a lot of property purchased. Is there a possibility some of this can be sold to reduce the debt? Every time you put property into a government, there goes your property tax base.
Right, and the county has purchased, well, they've used $68 million to buy land. That's the last time I checked. There may have been some purchases since then. The public voted on a conservation fund purchase of $30 million. And the reason that it's gotten to be so high is because we have received funds from other organizations, Nature Conservancy stewardship funds, and therein lies the problem with putting some of that property back on the tax rolls. Once it's been funded with some of these other funds, it stays in conservation forever. And there's no way of lifting it. It's like a deed restriction that can't be lifted. So I think, unfortunately, I don't see an option for doing that, you know, selling some of that land back to the public, where it would go back on the tax rolls. The most important thing we can do right now is to stop buying more land. We don't need to buy any more farms. You know, there may be some value in purchasing smaller connecting links for bike trails and ski trails and things like that. And there are lots of people in this area that like those things and use them. But the idea of buying more farms to stop development is just, it's ludicrous. I mean, and we really can't afford it. So I'd put the nix on that one right away.
Eileen, just going back to the RTA for a moment, you spoke of legislation at the state level that might be coming down the pike. I've also heard about that legislation that may be coming down the pike. We have a legislative team in this group that works up at the Capitol, and we have been speaking with people like Senator Mary Lozick, who is very interested in introducing a bill that would do away with unelected, unaccountable boards in the state and bring those that exist under some kind of accountability. Have you been in touch with Senator Lozick? Are you aware of that?
No, I wasn't, but you know, the thing that I have learned about at least county government is that a lot can go on behind closed doors, and it shouldn't be that way. It's like bad public policy when things happen like that.